Our next speaker is Mr. Buzz Woeckener. Buzz Woeckener has over 25 years of experience in technology leadership, leading successful teams in all aspects of infrastructure management. He is currently the leader of the Security Command Center for Nationwide Insurance. Having a strong passion for leadership, Buzz is sought after for his ability to create high-performing and engaged teams through his leadership style and technique. So if we could have a round of applause to introduce Mr. Woeckener.
Thank you very much. First off, it's a privilege and an honor to be able to come here and speak to you all. I really appreciate it. Running the Security Command Center for Nationwide, to give you a little bit of background around that so that's our Security Operations Center. So underneath my group, I have our forensics organization, which goes out and does forensics things, which is, the stuff you see, like all the CSI stuff they do. Some of that does happen. It actually is real. Some of it is, not all of it. It takes a little longer. I have the attack and penetration team. So that's the one, if you hear about the white hats and the black hats and the red teams and the blue teams, so I have that organization also. I have vulnerability management. So the organization, it scans all of our perimeters and all of our devices to see what type of opportunities we have that we might have to take care of. I have the threat intelligence team also, which is the one that goes out and does all the intel and gets with all the different peoples and on the dark web and whatnot to see what's going on and what can we get some more information about. And of course the Security Operations Center, which is 24/7, 7 days a week, eyes on glass. So they're sitting there in the room, they're watching all the feeds that come in, the Twitter feeds, the CNN, the Fox, and then doing all the other type of stuff to find out what's going on and what do we need to be prepared for. So that's the organization that I have. A little bit about Nationwide, who we are, right? Actually, this is from 2015. We're now a Fortune 69 company, which was a big jump. So we went from 105 to 85 to 69 now on the Fortune 100 list. We're #1 insurer of pets. A lot of people don't know that. So if you have a pet, you need pet insurance, we're the ones to come see. We're the largest provider of 457s. How many know what a 457 is? 457s are like 401ks, but for government entities. So like a higher university might have 457s for their employees and that type of stuff, or the city of Columbus. 16 billion of things that we paid in benefits in 2015. We're very, very financially secure, strong capital presence. Some of the other things that we're in besides that, commercial is really big, 457 plans as I talked about, 8th largest for autos, 7th largest for home. Been around a long, long time. We're a mutual company, which is a big difference, right? We have members, so we don't have to worry about stockholders telling us what to do, and that does make a big difference. And I will tell you that, having been with Nationwide for 12 years, how we take care of our members is the #1 thing that's important to us. So it's a great, great company. So a little bit about what I do and what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to talk about the cybersecurity program that we have Nationwide in my organization, the Security Command Center. And just give you some ideas. The first speaker today talked a little bit about Internet of Things and other items that could possibly go wrong. And maybe I'm going to peel a little bit further back in this and give you some other examples to think about, because we really don't understand, I think, in our day-to-day lives how many times we make ourselves vulnerable and how easy it is for us to be compromised. And so if I can give you a little more insight into that, make you understand a little more. You guys are making me nervous. You're squished together like this. Yeah, you got all this room. Join the dark side. So let's talk about this. I love this picture because this is really what these guys are, right? We get people out there that this is what they do for a living. We have people in nation states and other countries that they show up and they go to school or they go to work every day. They go into a building that's got elevators and cubicles and desks, and they sit down and their job, and they've got health benefits and they get a paycheck. They probably have 401k or whatever it is that's called over there, right? But their sole job is to try and break in and compromise all the different places that their organizations believe needs to be done. And it isn't just about, there's all these, you hear about all the different little entities that are out there. And yeah, they're really, really big and powerful, but nation states are also very, very strong too. And this is their job. So they're looking for everything that they can compromise and exploit. And here's the challenge. We have to be right 100% of the time. They only have to be right once. So think about that. Of all the things that you touch and you do every day, can only have to be right one time, where you have to be on guard every time and with everything you do. So some statistics, right? And these are real numbers for 2016 to give you an idea of what we're doing. 6.3 billion with a B malware attacks we fought off last year that were coming into my network, Nationwide's network, trying to do terrible things to us, right? We had 189 million sites that we blocked. So we saw these sites, we said, hey, they keep trying to do this stuff enough, and we shunned their IP address so they can't get to us anymore. 7,000, almost 7,500 credible security incidences that we investigated. So think about how many that is per day that we're sitting down looking at and saying, wow, this looks really bad. Is it bad? Does it really have an effect on us? Is there a chance that we're going to be compromised? How do we get ahead of the bad guys, right? 28,000 devices, almost 29, it's a little more than that now, that we scan with Qualys. When I talked about vulnerability scanning, we use this tool called Qualys. We scan these devices every week. We're going out and we're just walking the network, looking for things that could be happening. Tripwire we use from our configuration management point of view. Again, it's just another piece of vulnerability that we're trying to look at, that we're trying to see what got changed. Did they change something in the executable on that server that now allows them to have access, right? IP blocks, sessions that we killed, but most importantly, the one up there that says 5 critical vulnerabilities. You heard earlier they were talking about 0 days. We addressed 5 0 days last year. So what that means is we wake up this morning and all of a sudden we find something, we read something, and it's like, oh look, they figured out a way to exploit this thing and now they can get in. How do we stop them, right? There's 2 things you want to make sure you always do. It's not only how do you stop them from getting in, but how do you stop them from getting anything out? And that's probably almost more important than the getting in, right? Because people are always going to be able to get in. And I remember I was sitting at a conference one time and one of the larger hotel chains, CISO, was sitting next to me, and we were talking, I was giving some of this information up, and I sat down and she said, oh yeah, but you know, we're really good. We got this really great network and we're really strong about everything we do. And I go, really? You're really strong? I said, I'm sitting in your hotel right now. I said, as far as you know, my laptop right now is logged onto your guest network and all I'm doing is checking my email at home. That's what you think I'm doing. What if I've got a guy that's sitting outside right now is using my laptop as a jump point and I'm hammering your network and you don't realize it's me hammering your network because I'm allowed to be in. So every one of you is a threat. The biggest threat that any organization has are the people that works for them. Because all you have to do is click something one time, right? Click a malware, click something to give somebody access. How many people use LinkedIn? Number 1 source of information for cyber criminals. Did y'all know that? So people go, well, what do you mean? So you're working for XYZ company. And so what do you say? I'm a senior systems administrator on the network team. I have familiarity with Cisco routers, this F5, this and that and the other thing, right? Here's this cybersecurity guy going, oh look, they use Cisco this. Oh look, they use F5s. Oh look, this guy is the senior system administrator. Let's not waste our time on all these people. Let's see if we can get this guy to click on something. So when you put this information into LinkedIn, you got to be very careful about it. Very, very careful about it. Because they're relentless. That's the thing you have to remember about these guys. They are relentless. So what do we do from a defensive point of view? How do we stop this? Well, you notice that the top one that I got is user awareness, right? So Nationwide does a very, very good job of phishing campaigns. We've been doing it now for about 3.5, 4 years. As a matter of fact, this year, for the first time ever, we've actually added in as one of our objectives for the enterprise. So it's a yes/no question, but if you were phished, you know, we did a phish against you, and you did fall for the bait, well, we were going to keep track of it now, right? Because it's that important. Because it only takes 1 click for them to get in. When you look at incident management, do you have a documented process on how you handle an event? Most organizations don't. If you went and asked your companies when you go back, or go home when you see your parents or who it is and say, hey, do you know if your company, what would happen if they got breached? What would happen if information was walking out the door? When that's happening, that's not the time to be figuring out what you're going to do. Having that plan, having it documented, doing tabletop exercises and understanding what and who does what type of information gets released, what doesn't get released. These are all types of things that you need to consider as you're moving forward if you decide to go into the cybersecurity profession. Managing user privileges, one of the hardest ones out there, because unfortunately, sometimes the people that manage all these devices, they get this feeling that they're smarter than the criminals out there, right? Well, yeah, I know about all that stuff, but it's okay, I can do it because I know about all of it. RSA about 3.5 years ago got hacked, got broken into by one of the senior system administrators. You know how they got him? They found him out on LinkedIn. They found out that from what his role was within RSA. Then they started watching him. Then they looked at Facebook. Well, that's another scary place too. We won't talk about that. They realized how bad Facebook was. They saw that he just went on vacation, and they sent an email link to him, or a link within Facebook, and said, hey, we were all together. I got some new photos for you to look at. Guy clicked on the link, malware loaded into a watcher that was on his desktop PC, and every time he keyed something in, it sent it out to the bad guys outside of his network. Got all of his passwords, and he's the senior system administrator. They got all of their keys. They got all of the stuff. One click. So never underestimate the power of these guys that are coming after. Third parties. Everybody heard about Target, right? Everybody knows what happened to Target. Air conditioning company, third party. How did they get in? Well, a lot of companies are really, really strong about how they have their perimeters defended, right? But then they don't go to think about third parties. One of my favorite stories, there was a financial institution in New York City that the bad guys wanted to get into really, really bad. And they couldn't. They kept knocking on the door. They kept trying to, man, their cybersecurity defenses were tight. And they did a great job. But they really wanted to get in because there was some stuff in there they really wanted, right? So they put people outside of the building, and they started watching the employees as they went and came to and from work. And what they recognized was that there was a whole bunch of associates that went to a Chinese restaurant that was located about 2 blocks around the corner. So they hacked into the Chinese restaurant. They uploaded their malware to the menu. And then they just waited for somebody to go, hey, what are they having at the Chinese restaurant today? I don't know, let me go see. Let's log on. Oh, look, today this is the special. They got in. They couldn't get in the traditional way, so they came in another way, right? And they clicked it, and once they're in, right, that's what I'm saying. Once they're in, now you have to figure out how do you keep them from exploiting all the information out. Home and mobile working. How do you enable associates to do this safely, right? You all have heard about virtual VPN, right? You heard someone talk today about multi-factor, MFA. Absolutely. If you're doing any business online that you're not doing something to a multi-factor, you should seriously consider if it's worth the risk. If you're banking with someone that doesn't use multi-factor, change. Because you need that second set of authentication to understand what it is. If you use Gmail, how many know that in Gmail you can enable multi-factor? Great. If you don't and you don't have it, talk to one of these people that raised their hands to get it done. You can do the same thing in Facebook. Someone asked me one time, well, Buzz, do you have a Facebook account? Well, yes, I do. I set it up and I immediately disabled it. Why? Because I don't want someone to be able to go in and steal my credentials, to act like they're me, to try and say, hey, this is where I'm going to go ahead and get connected to. When you're on your LinkedIn accounts, the same thing. Be very, very cautious about who you accept into your LinkedIn world, right? I think I get LinkedIn invites a lot. I might have 160 people, and I've been on LinkedIn since it probably started. Because I want to make sure, because everybody wants to connect. But you got to be careful of who those people are. And a lot of times people just, oh, sure, right? I'll click. Get another one. Look, I got 7 million people that are in my LinkedIn accounts. How many people have more than 1,000? Wow, that's pretty good. That's good. Malware protection, we've talked a lot about that, right? How do you fight against malware? What do you do to protect yourself? What would happen if you lost your laptop or your device? Is your phone encrypted? Do you have your disks encrypted on your laptop? So that if somebody loses it, it doesn't matter because you can't get to it. A lot of people don't. How many have ever picked up a USB and installed it or plugged it into their laptop to see what's going on? Yeah, don't raise your hands on that one. I don't want to know. But Yulu came up to me today and said, hey, we'd really like to have these presentation slides. Can I get them? We have a USB up here. And I said, no. I might send them to you, but I don't know where that USB drive's been. So as far as I know, I plug it in here, and next thing you know, I'm juiced. But you have to think that way. You know, one of the biggest tricks they do with USBs is they throw them out in parking lots, right? And they say payroll. Or they say HR information. And what's the first thing you do? Oh my God, here, what is it? And it goes, and it might have some stuff in there. But you have some stuff now too that you didn't want. And that's how they get in. Encryption we just talked about. Network security we've been talking about all along. How do you defend and how do you attack? There's a bunch of tools out there right now. And the challenge with these tools that you're seeing is the shelf life on these things, the half-life on these things have just gone down tubes, you know. 2 years ago, you talked about a tool out there like Sultra Edge was like the big one, right? You don't even hear it talked about anymore. We're figuring right now, I just read a study that we think the half-life is probably about 2 years, maybe a year, you know, on some new security tool that you'll buy. And if they're not a very, very progressive company and they're really hammering to keep up to speed, somebody will trump them, right? And then they've got, because here's the thing, it's always changing. You know, that's what I love about what I do is every day I wake up and it's a new challenge, right? Because the bad guys are out there and they're always trying to get in. And I was talking to Matt at lunch, the only difference between the people that I have working with me and the people that are the bad guys is there's this gene that says that I'm going to do everything for good. And those are the guys that are working with me. Because it's the same tools, it's the same skill sets, it's all the same stuff. And so, but we just have to be better than them, and we have to be more proactive than them, and we have to look at places where other people might go, maybe I don't need to worry about this too much. And then monitoring, right? As I said, eyes on glass. And you go, well, why would you want to worry about that? Well, because, you know, most of the time these people live someplace else in a different time zone. And nighttime is usually the best time to come in because nobody's watching. You'd be amazed at how many locations today in large companies still don't have 24/7 security operations centers. So they you know, go Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. And oh, guess what? Bad guys know that. You'd be amazed at what the bad guys know. They know so much stuff, it's amazing. It's just amazing. And they know so much stuff that it's like you and I might look at it and go, oh, wow, this is really big. And they go, no, that's nothing. Yeah, look at this over here, right? HIPAA records, best ones out there. If you want to get a HIPAA record, they're worth a lot of money, right? Think of all the data that you have, right? And now they're getting together where, I can only get this much from this place, and I can only get this much from this place, and I can only get this much from this place, but I can munge them all together, and now I got a lot. So just remember, don't leave anything unturned. So what do? We continue, this circle here is what we kind of do all the time. We continually reassess the risk, right? Because what wasn't risky today doesn't mean it won't be tomorrow. For example, I'll give you a good one, struts. I don't know how many of you know about struts, but it just came out, right? About 2 weeks ago, there was a 0 day. Now this vulnerability has been out for about 3 or 4 years. Somebody finally figured out how to exploit it, right? So it went from being in the world of vulnerabilities that's called a CVE rating. It went from being like a 5 or a 6, I think is what it was, to now it's a 0 day, right? So nobody's paying any attention to it, but somebody was because they're looking, right? And then when they build this thing, they put it out on the dark web and they say, hey, I just figured this out. And oh, here's how you use it. And oh, here's how you scan for it. And so that's why they call them 0 days. It's like you wake up in the morning, it's like, where did this come from? And how do you defend against it? So you have to continually be vigilant. You have to continually reassess the risks. You know, investment is a big deal in cybersecurity. It's expensive, right? You want to make sure you're spending your money in the right place. That you get whatever dollar you're spending, you're able to reduce the risk of your organization by doing so. And the problem is that, you know, new regulations come out all the time. You know, Nationwide's not only a big investment company, but we're also a bank. So we have all kinds of regulations that we have to adhere to, and they're coming up with new ones every day. And that could fundamentally change the way that you have to protect things. There was about 2 years ago, there was a bill that was trying to get passed in Florida that said they were going to consider email addresses PII information. Can you imagine what you'd have to do and how you'd have to change things if all of a sudden your email address became personally identifiable information that had to be regulated and controlled? So you get it, you get all these understandings, and you got to build out the requirements. You got to understand what's important, because nobody can do everything all the time. You have to decide, pick and choose what you're going to do, and make sure you're doing it in the right order. Prioritize your deployment of it, and then you just monitor and maintain. And then when you get done doing all of that, you start all over again. You just keep moving through the cycle. So let's talk about some key takeaways. Let's see how I'm doing on time. Oh, good. I have time for questions. Some key takeaways. You know, it's increasing every day. I mean, you know, if you're not subscribed to some of these that are out there, there's some really good sites that, you know, send you notices every day. RSA has them. There's one out there called The Hacker that I actually like. It gives you some pretty good. It's run by Sophos. But they just give you all these new things that are coming out. I was just reading it before I came in here. You know, they're talking about Symantec now has some challenges maybe with their SSL keys that they've been able to hack, and that GitHub, which all the developers use, right? How many know what GitHub is, right? Well, be careful, as they just discovered a malware agent that's out there that looks like it's coming from GitHub, and you click on it and now you're infected. So, and by the way, who uses GitHub? Developers. Would be a great place to start infecting into your code. So, but these are the types of things that you got to look at and you read every day. It's a full-time job. Like I said, I have an organization, cyber threat organization, that's all they do every day is they go out, they listen, they look at all the different feeds that come in, they have some on the dark web that they're, you know, connected with that people don't know who they are. They think they're just one of the bad guys, and that's how you got to get involved with it, right? And we do a very, very good job of it. We're recognized for our ability to discover things, right? And we work oftentimes very closely with a lot of three-letter government agencies to help figure out some different things. It's a business risk. Right? That's when you think about it from a business risk, a lot of times it isn't about the money you lost, it's about your reputation. You know, one of the nice things that, you know, I didn't mention on that slide, you know, Nationwide is considered one of the top 10 trusted companies in the country. That's a pretty big deal. We take it very, very seriously, but you figure that we're, you know, considered by consumers to be one of the top 10 trusted companies in the United States. That's very serious. And we take it very seriously, and we work very hard to keep that status. You can never be totally safe. If someone comes up to you and says, it can't happen to me, don't talk to them, right? Just like the lady that I told you about, right? And the epilogue to that story was about 3 months later they got breached, right? So you should never sit back on your laurels. Never believe that it can't happen to you, because it can. It probably already has. How many people have received a note from their bank, financial institution, or somebody that says, hey, we're going to buy you free credit monitoring for a year? Yeah, because they got in and got some stuff, and now that they've got to protect you. They've got to watch out for you. You're going to have to continue to invest money. When you get to these corporations and you're going to come up with ideas of things that you want to do, they're going to have to continue to do that. I'll bet you that you see every now and then the college comes out with some new thing that they want to do, Oh yeah, if you have iPhones, make sure you do the next update. It just came out too. They've got a bug that they just fixed with their Safari that was allowing people to compromise JavaScripts. So if you have an iPhone, there'll be an update coming out pretty soon. And emerging technology is a balancing act. You got to make sure that you're not just going after the new shiny thing, right? Because there's a lot of new shiny things out there. There's a lot of stuff that'll come out and they'll say, this will do all of those things. Make sure you always ask them to prove it to you. Make sure you understand how it fits into what you're doing, right? Because it may not align with what you're doing. You may be okay with some of those places. A lot of times you'll hear people talk about defense in depth, right? I'll give you an example. I may see a critical vulnerability that by all means is a 10, right? But on the devices that it's located, they are not internet facing. They're 6 layers back deep into my network, and I've got other compensating controls in place to keep anybody that I would know something's going on before they got back there. So that's why when I said I had 5 last year, I had a lot more than 5 that I had to research. I only had 5 that I had to take action on, right? Because of all the other compensating controls that we had in place. So if you take away anything from this, if you haven't figured it out, cybersecurity is really fun. It's a very, very exciting role. I was talking to Matt at lunch too. Right now, I think when last time I looked, there's 80,000 qualified applicants and there's 400,000 jobs out there right now waiting for it, for cybersecurity professionals. So in all levels, attack and pen, forensics, cyber threat analysis, security operations center. And the thing is, it's always changing. It's always going into something else. It's a lot of fun. So if you have never considered the cybersecurity as a profession, that might be something to think about. With that, it broke. Well, it broke at the right time. Questions? Yes?
What are some things your company do to prevent hackers from taking things out of your network?
So what are things that my company is doing? What systems or processes?
Exactly how you protect.
Sure. Sure. It's on LinkedIn. Just go to my LinkedIn address and you can find all of it. We do lots of things. How's that? So some of the compensating controls I'm talking about, though, that I talk about, there are things that you can put in from, are you authorized and are you authenticated, right? There is a difference. Are you allowed to get to this area? And if you are allowed, then can I authenticate your identity, right? Those are a couple things. The routing of how you do things through the network, what type of firewalls you go through. There's new firewalls out there now called, pieces called WAFs, web application firewalls, where not only do I then get into it, but now I've got to have the right credentials to even get past the next step. And then once I get to the application, I might have to have multi-factor to be able to get onto it. So it's all those types of things that we do. We limit the number of outlets to the internet, right? One of the big things that we do that a lot of places wish they could do, and then it's people like Matt here that helped back in the day, and I do because I remember we don't resolve any addresses to the internet. Now you might go, big deal. No, it's huge. That means if you come in and from the outside and we don't know about you and we don't have you, you just bounce around for a heartbeat and then you go away. Right? Most companies today resolve to the internet. So if they don't see it, the first thing they do is they go outside of the internet and they go, hey, has anybody heard of www.buzz.com? Oh yeah, I know this guy, sure. All right, here's where it is, go to it. Well, I just put my malware in there. So here, you just resolved the address. When you come in our world, no. And it's a battle because there's a lot of complexity that goes around that and there's a lot of extra work, but I'm telling you, it's a huge benefit. Good question. Anything else? Yes, sir.
So I know you said you had 24/7 eyes on glass. With the current trend, like what NSA is doing, they're moving towards AI. Is that something that's happening, or are you sticking to the human part of it?
So you will always have to have human intervention because there's always this judgment call, right? And I think that when you get to the point where you say you've automated everything, and I hate the word automate. The reason I hate it so much is because in its truest sense, automation means that when something happens, it takes care of it and there's nothing that has to be done, right? I much prefer less manual. right? So we look at things to where it's less manual, and we're always trying to create things that are less manual. But to have those people that are sitting at the glass, always looking at things, trying to make the judgment of where it is. Now, you may need less as you get more and more less manual, but you're always going to have that human element, in my humble opinion, to be able to decide what's going on. I mean, we've become significantly less manual over the last 3 or 4 years. We still have that need because I've got to be able to interpret things. I've got to be able to understand what the real impact to me is, right? Do I really have this compensating control? Is that server really up? All types of things like that. So I don't, if the question is, do I think we'll ever go away, people? No. But we'll get better at utilizing the people that we have.
No question.
Yes, sir.
In the cloud talk earlier, he implied that like banks basically don't use the cloud just because they have mainframes, so there's so much that they have to process. What is your opinion?
So we have mainframe.
Yeah.
I think the challenge when I was listening, it was a great presentation. All these presentations were good. There's no silver bullet, right? So to go to a company and say, I can do everything that you can do, and I can do it on the mainframe, and I can do it better. No, you can't. I can do everything distributed, and I can do it better. No, you can't. I can do everything in the cloud. I don't know. Matt's going to talk more about the cloud later. He'll give you more insight in it. There's always something to do. I think the mainframe has its place. You know, now, is it 99.99999% up? Yep. Has it ever been hacked? How many people know? Has the mainframe ever been hacked? How many say yes? How many say no? How many don't know what a mainframe is? So it did. About 3.5 years ago, it got hacked. Never been done before in the history. A gentleman got upset that was from North Korea because of the way they mistreated the woman he was married to, and they kicked him out of the country, and he went to South Vietnam, and he decided he was going to get into their systems to make a change, and it was a mainframe, and he was able to successfully hack into the mainframe, and it sent ripples everywhere because up until that date, the mainframe had never been hacked, and it still has only been hacked once. But all things are possible. That's the piece. That's why I say you can never rest on your laurels. Question? Yes, sir.
I'll use the microphone.
So can you comment on anything that you are doing to protect your network from people traveling out of the country with their phones probably coming back into the country and having their phones confiscated by authorities?
So we fortunately don't have a lot of, we don't have anything, you know, we're not an international company. So that's fortunate. Whenever you,
But some of your employees might go internationally.
well, so when you go out of the country and you're going to take your personal iPhone with you, right? One of the things that we set up, and Jim Gay was big on doing this, we use Box. Oh no, excuse me, we use Good Works now. I was thinking before. We use Good, now it's called Works from BlackBerry. And it sets up a container on the phone, and that's where all of our information sits and stays. And if anything goes wrong with it, we can push a button and it all goes away also. And if you want to have that ability to use your personal phone as part of your job, you sign all kinds of waivers that your agreement that we're going to set up a container and we own this container, and if we need to, we're going to push a button and everything's going to go away. We haven't had to do that yet. We haven't seen any compromises that I'm aware of that have come across the phone. But we've taken those steps to do it, even to the point where it's multi-factor authentication now to be able to get into the Good Works. So, but it's always a risk. Companies, I can tell you that I sit on a couple technology boards, and that's one of the biggest questions. What am I doing with all the people that travel abroad? And depending on where you go, the rules change. You know, if you're in Germany, there's all kinds of things you can't do, right? You're not allowed to encrypt, and you're not allowed to, it's craziness, all right? But you just have to, I'm a very blessed man because we don't have any international presence anywhere. It makes the job a lot easier. Anything else? Well, again, thank you very, very much for having me. I hope you found this informative. Take care.